In May 2024, for the first time in 70 years, France sent an official government minister to attend Vietnam's anniversary celebration of a French defeat. A battle so total it ended a colonial war, and within months, the century of French rule in Indochina. The First Indochina War ran from 1946 to 1954 between France and Ho Chi Minh's Viet Minh. It ended with the 57-day siege and fall of a French fortress at Dien Bien Phu and the Geneva Accords that followed 6 weeks later, which ended French colonial rule but also split Vietnam in two along the 17th parallel, pending elections that were never held. Of the roughly 11,700 French and French allied troops taken prisoner at Dien Bien Phu, only about 3,300 survived to be repatriated 4 months later. September 2, 1945, Ho Chi Minh declares Vietnamese independence in Hanoi, quoting the American Declaration of Independence almost word for word. 1946, talks at Fontainebleau between Ho Chi Minh and France collapse over the terms of self-rule. November 1946, French warships shell the port of Haiphong. December 19, 1946, the Viet Minh attacks French forces in Hanoi, opening the war. Through the early 1950s, China and the Soviet Union armed the Viet Minh, while the United States funds a growing share of France's war costs. March 13, 1954, the Viet Minh, under General Vo Nguyen Giap, besieges the French garrison at Dien Bien Phu. May 7, 1954, after 57 days, the garrison surrenders. April 26 to July 21, 1954, the Geneva Conference produces accords ending the war, temporarily dividing Vietnam at the 17th parallel, and setting national reunification elections for 1956, elections that were never held. Vietnam's own official histories describe Dien Bien Phu as the culmination of a resistance war against nearly a century of French colonial rule, a victory of, in their words, patriotism and indomitable will, forged through thousands of years of history. It is remembered not as a single battle, but as the moment French colonialism's global position broke, forcing France to reconsider its hold on colonies elsewhere in Asia and Africa. Ho Chi Minh's 1945 declaration, delivered before the war even began, is treated as the founding claim that the following 9 years of fighting simply made good on. France entered the war to restore the colonial administration it had held since the 19th century, treating Ho Chi Minh's 1945 declaration as an unrecognized unilateral act rather than a legitimate transfer of sovereignty. For years, French governments described the conflict at home not as a colonial war, but as a fight against communist expansion in Asia, a framing that helped secure growing American funding as the Cold War hardened. That version of the story has shifted slowly. In 2024, France sent a government minister to Dien Bien Phu for the first time, and Vietnamese and French officials now describe the relationship as a comprehensive strategic partner, an ally, not merely a former colonial ruler. Look at what actually happened to the two sides once the gun stopped. French Union prisoners captured at Dien Bien Phu were marched hundreds of kilometers to prison camps and held for 4 months. And only 28% of them came home alive, a number that stunned France more than the battlefield defeat itself. Yet the peace that followed erased almost nothing for the winning side's larger goal. The Geneva Accords promised reunification elections within 2 years. Those elections never happened, and Vietnam did not actually reunify under one government for another 21 years, through a second far longer war. The battle that ended French rule did not end the fight over what would replace it. This series has already asked where history begins. Who counts the dead? What history is made of? Who decides what a gesture means? Who decides when it's time to ask a settled question again? Which authority, the ballot or the court, should be believed over? And whether a war's ending belongs to the side that stops fighting or the side left holding the aftermath. Dien Bien Phu adds one more. A single battle can end an empire's claim to a country in an afternoon, while the argument over what replaces that empire can outlast the battle by decades. Next time, a famine in the 19th century that one government called a natural disaster and another still calls, a century and a half later, an act of genocide. Ireland.